Okay, so in the last demo, we left off by having the following stuff styled. We were able to get all of this content, and then like these are floating, and we got these things in a single column looking like this. So that's good, but we have a problem in that, that's nice for the mobile view, but when we get larger, this column is too small and narrow, and these things are a bit big. And I'm thinking that for skills, instead of having two columns that keep getting bigger and bigger, that we shift it so that it will end up having all 6 of these in one line in a row. And down here, for the portfolio, I think that we should have 3 in a single row so that we have basically 3 columns to each row. Okay, now let's look at this first. I'm going to predict that somewhere right around, well, let's take a look. Hold on. Let's go to inspect element. And right up in this corner, as I start dragging it, notice you'll see some numbers appear. All right, so I'm suspecting that somewhere in the ballpark of 700, 720, somewhere in there, like that would probably be a good place as we get bigger and bigger and bigger, that they start, these icons are just a little bit big. I think that they could go in a row and fit comfortably so that they'd still be big enough right around 720 to view. And that's probably going to be true also, excuse me, for the portfolio. So I'm going to go over here in my CSS and I'm just going to paste some stuff and then I'll explain it. So I'm going to go to the very bottom of the style sheet after all my other rules, and I'm going to create my media query. And so I'm going to go ahead and also put a comment because it's a good practice. We'll say media queries, even though right now we just have the one, and we might not have any others. But so right now we're going to do a min width of 720. So anything over 720 is going to take the following behavior. Now we want the UL for the skills to change, because if you go back to its original size, you see that it was originally only 60%. So it needs to be 100%. It needs to be wider so that it can accommodate all 6 of those icons. And then also, while we're here, let's notice some other stuff. So we have a float left on the list items. That's fine. We don't need to change that because they're still going to float left. We do want the width to be different, though. We don't want them to be 40% with 5% padding anymore. They're going to have to be smaller. Let's go down. The list item can be 16%. So if you multiply, let's do the math. So if you say 16 times 6, that's 96. It leaves 4% overage. Basically, if you have 6 items, then that means each one of them has a left and right. So 6 times 2 is 12. So if you divide 4 by 12, you end up getting basically 3.3. So we're going to do 0.33% for the padding for these list items. And then for the portfolio list item, okay, this one's going to be for the portfolio. Before we didn't have any float on it, it was a single column. So now we're going to float left, and we're basically going to tell it to have a width of 29%. So that's almost 30% each. And if we're doing 3, then that means we have, a little bit more than 10% left over for padding and stuff. And then we also have margins and stuff like that. And also notice that I need to set the max width, because before I had set the max width at 800. Well, if I don't reset a new value here for max width, then it won't override it, and it's still going to max out at 800, and we don't want that on big screens. So for the max width, we're going to say 29%. And I'm going to go ahead and save this, and let's do a quick test and see how it looks. And there we go. On the larger screens, that still looks nice. And down here, we've got our columns, and we'll see when it breaks. Right there, nice, looks good. I'm happy with that. And right there, it breaks. That still looks fine. Okay, so now we've taken care of the media queries. We can move into our JavaScript stuff for the page scrolling, because one of the things that still bothers me is if I go to my menu and I click on education, it just jumps. And it's like, you can't even really tell that you're on the same page anymore. There's no indication. There's no way of knowing for sure. You sort of feel lost. You've lost your branding and everything. So on a single page, if it's going to substitute for an entire site, a lot of users have that expectation that there are multiple pages. So if it jumps to a place that they don't recognize, then they don't know necessarily where they are. And most people don't understand to look up here, you know, for a hash symbol that tells them that they're on the same page. So what we need to do now is to go ahead and implement that JavaScript for the parallax scrolling effect. There's a really great script. So let's open a new web browser window. There's a really great script on css-tricks.com. So if you go to css-tricks.com, there's a search bar, and in that search bar, just type in page scroll. And there are lots of different ways that you can do this, but this is a really good script, and this person doesn't mind sharing it with everybody. And this way we don't have to write it from scratch. So if you scroll down, the second hit where it says smooth scrolling CSS tricks, it's in their snippets section. Basically, they just give you the snippet. Here, I'll open this bigger so you can see it on a larger screen. And basically, what it allows you to do is just go ahead and take this entire code and put it in your clipboard. I just copied it. And also it gives you a demo that you can view so that you can see what it is you're about to implement. So this is the kind of thing that we're going to do, all right? So that we can tell that we're on the same page, moving within the same page. Once you've copied that, then I want you to go back to your HTML file, go down to the bottom, and you want to load this down below the jQuery library, where the jQuery library gets loaded. Mine's on line 192. Remember, that's at the bottom of the page. And I'm going to put it after my no script. What I need to do, I can't just paste what I had. I have to create a script tag for it. So we're going to go to script, and we need to tell it the type equals, and then it automatically, Komodo automatically says text JavaScript. Yes, that's what we want. And then we're going to close that, and I'm going to leave some space where we can put that script right inside of there that we copied. Now I'm going to just paste it, and it gives you all this, it looks like crazy gobbledygook. I'm going to select all the way up until almost all the way. I'm not going to take the first function line. I'm going to select all the way up, and I'm going to tab it in so that it's a lot better nested so that I can see the relationships. So basically you can see here that this is the beginning of the function, and then this is the ending of the function, and then here's the function, okay? And so, and it's got conditional statements in it and stuff like that. And basically what it's doing is it's saying, all right, I'm looking for an anchor link, that's what this A is, and then it's saying where it has an href, and then this little asterisk, that's a wildcard, it means anything. So where the href could equal basically anything with a hash except, all right, and see there's this little colon that says not, except unless it's just an href that equals a hash. So essentially what this is saying is any A that has an href that has hash something, then whenever you click on it, go ahead and run this function, and then it gives you all this conditional statements. So it allows you to be able to click on something that is not just an href with a hash mark only. Okay, and the reason for that is a lot of times if you just have a hash mark, maybe it's for some other kind of JavaScript, or you know, you're just using it as a placeholder for linking. This is what's important. It's saying, you know, basically go ahead and animate if certain conditions are met about the location of the target. Okay, and here's the thing that you might really care about. See where it says 1,000? I think that 1,000 is a little bit slow. That is going to be the speed of the animation. So the larger the number, the slower the effect is. I think that let's try like something like 800, and I think that that might be good. Otherwise, it's going to be a little bit too, you know, like clunky, I think. So let's save this, and let's go ahead and do a test. And now if I go to my menu and I click on education, perfect. There's my scroller. And that seems like a pretty good speed for this page. You don't want it to go too fast, otherwise it actually can make people a little bit motion sickness, believe it or not. And if you go too slow, then it feels like very like chunky, like a slow keyframe animation. So this is a pretty good, I think, speed. If that seems a little bit fast to you, you can bump it up to like 900 or 1000 again. Okay, so that's how you plain and simple can animate your page using that scrolling effect. Now, but before you get too excited, let's just do something so we don't forget to deal with it. Because this is a script tag, like I said before, we're really supposed to have something in here that is called no script. So let's go ahead and put the equivalent so that somebody who doesn't have it enabled will see something. I'm just going to paste something so you don't have to watch me type. So I'm going to put a paragraph in that basically tells the user JavaScript is disabled in your browser. Smooth scrolling will be disabled on navigation links. And I could even say something like, but it does not affect the content. So that way they know that what they're missing out on basically isn't anything. They're not missing anything other than some fancy little effect. That's it. I'm going to save that and go back to my browser. What I can also do now that that's saved, I'm going to refresh the page. I'm going to go ahead and inspect some element, I don't care which element, but what I care about is I'm going to go down here. First of all, I'm going to scroll down to the bottom, and this is what you see. All looks good. Now I'm going to disable JavaScript, and now I'm going to refresh again. And now you see that bottom menu, right? And now you see the notice down at the bottom. So if you wanted to style this paragraph so that it doesn't look haphazardly just thrown down there, you could write a really quick style. And you could also stick that up here, no script section. So if you, let's just take a second, something like, okay, no script P. And if you wanted, we could do something like text align center. And, you know, margin. So for top and bottom, maybe 1em, and auto, something like width. And let's do it like at 80%. And because we have our left and right margin set to auto, we'll be fine. There, that's a lot nicer looking for somebody who, you know, gets stuck without the JavaScript. They at least get still a decent experience. And that way you click that and it jumps down. Okay, now something else that you might want to notice is actually it's not very good. I should fix it while I'm here. Watch when I click menu. This home button goes up underneath the nav and becomes inaccessible. So what I should also do is I should tell the main nav to have top padding, or padding top, sorry, of, and I think before with the heading levels we had said 4em so that it would clear that nav section. Let's try that and test it. That's a lot better. So now if we're somewhere else in the page and we go to menu, now home doesn't get stuck back up here, right? And then I always have access to my menu, okay? All right, so I think what we're gonna do now, I'm gonna first of all enable JavaScript again. So, because if I disable that, my other stuff won't work. So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to end this demo, and in the next demo we are going to deal with how to implement Lightbox here. So you should go ahead and collect images that you might want to use, and I should go ahead and tell you one of the first things that you're going to need to do is that you're going to need to make your thumbnails uniform size. And if you need to go do that in Photoshop, that's fine. But basically the way that I did mine was I made my thumbnails 200 by 150 in height. So 200 wide, 150 in height. And you could make them square if you wanted square thumbnails. That's easy for some people, and then they can just take a detail of a picture. It's up to you. I just did them this way. And also this is a good size, like say if you are accustomed to doing screen dimensions like for web or something, but it's also a pretty standard format for photography. So, but anyway, make sure they're consistent, because if they're not, just think about what's going to happen here if they're different heights. You might also mess up your floats. Just make them all the same. And then when you click on them, they can take you to a larger picture. The larger picture doesn't have to be the same height. So like if you have to do some creative cropping here, that's fine. But go ahead and prep these so that they're ready for the next demo.